Hi, everybody. I'm trying a new technology today, Screencastify. And so I'll have one of our mini lessons on scene versus summary. And instead of talking over a PowerPoint, you will see a little video of me in the bottom right. I'm hoping that that will be more engaging. When I talk to a lot of people in our conferences, I ask them about PowerPoints and got some confused looks. So these are important because they give you information that you need to be successful in the class. This mini lesson is on scene versus summary. And looking at your homework from a couple days ago, a lot of people, when we wrote that very short with a beginning, middle, and end, the majority of the stories were mostly in summary, which is fine. We're beginning. In fact, the reading for tonight is scene versus summary, among other things. But I'd want to look at a story closely and determine, I'll tell you when it's scene versus summary. We're going to look at Rock Happy. I'm doing the cheap version of Screencastify, and if I go over 10 minutes, it'll cut me off. So, Rock Happy. I had been married for 22 years, living on the windward side of Oahu in Hawaii. Now, I'm going to stop right there because first lines are important, and they give us a lot of information. What information do we have from that first line? We know who the person talking is, like we know it's a first person narrator, it's an I. We know who. We know where, so we have a setting. They're in Oahu, Hawaii. And we also have a rough idea of their age because they've been married for 22 years, so that's a pretty long time. We also have a rough idea of their socioeconomic class. They're living in Oahu. That's pretty expensive. We also have a rough idea of what is going to happen in the story. I had been married. That tense gives us some indication that this story might be about the dissolution of the marriage, which it is. Start again. I had been married for 22 years, living on the windward side of Oahu in Hawaii. No children. Originally, I had come to Hawaii as a young salesman to advise people on how to set up Jiffy Lube franchises. But when my consultancy work was done, I decided to stay. I got myself a franchise, realized this was where I wanted to go, this is where I wanted to live, and sent for Diana, my high school sweetheart. I want to point out that all of that is in summary. It's not in scene because we're not in third level specificity, right? It doesn't have dialogue. It doesn't have a well-described setting. It's not a one-time at band camp thing. This is all the information you need to know to jump into story. And a lot of stories are set up like this. Summary, maybe a paragraph or two of summary, and then launching into scene, right? So a lot of people in their beginning stories wrote like 30 years. You don't want to do that, right? You just want to summarize and then get to the important scene. What is the crux of this story? Okay, so she had a lot of complaints about living in Hawaii. The rats, the cockroaches, the way people talk English like it was another language, the lousy food, the terrible traffic, and many more, which is maybe the point of the story. I was happy. I would have done anything to make Diana happy. I hardly noticed her criticisms of me, although our whole being in Hawaii was my doing, as she said. I was in kind of a daze, but so what? I never got rock fever, like they say. I was rock happy. So now we know the main character, and we know quite a bit about his wife. His wife is unhappy living in Hawaii. And who would be unhappy living in Hawaii? I don't even know. So all of that is summary. It's getting us up to speed, telling us in a very quick way the backstory that we need to know to understand the present action of the story. And then look what the next paragraph is. We were driving one wet afternoon over the Pali, and just beyond the tunnel, there were one of these speed traps. So we know that we're in the story now because we have a specificity of one wet afternoon and the specificity of the Pali. And it's launching us into action. Just beyond the tunnel, there's a speed trap. So we know he's going to get a ticket. Cop flags me down. I drive onto the shoulder and get out my license and registration. The cop was a big moke, 6-something, way over 200 pounds, hands like pieces of meat. But he was very polite, very professional. It was true, I had probably been speeding. I laughed and agreed with him while he wrote out the citation. And so now we also know we're in scene because we're getting description. The cop, we know what he looks like. He's a big moke. We know how big he is. We have a simile, hands like pieces of meat, right? We're getting into something that is specific, something that is one time at band camp, something that is moving us from summary to scene, from backstory to story. A horrible choking honk like an animal's sudden fury made him stop writing. But it was a familiar sound to me. And look at the specificity of that and the beauty and the poetry. A horrible choking honk like an animal's sudden fury made him stop writing. That's very specific. It's very good show, not tell. And it also has a musicality that a lot of what we talked about in our poetry section. Horrible, choking honk. Billy, you tell him we're going to court. You hear me, Billy? Now we're in dialogue, third level specificity. The cop took a step back and looked into the car at Diana's pudgy purple face, the veins standing out on her neck, the spit on her lips. That is not a positive description of his wife. And we also have some alliteration. Pudgy purple face. Is that your wife? He said it in a disgusted and pitying voice. I said yes, and I almost added, what's the problem? He tore up the ticket. I ain't giving you this. You got enough problems, brother. And then the scene is over, and we're back to a very brief summary. After a few months, we separated, and within a year, we're divorced. Diana's back on the mainland now. And I've got to ask the question, why did he tell this story? We don't know the narrator's name, but why did he tell the story? This is the moment. Oh, it's Billy. It says right there, Billy. This is the moment when this is the crisis moment in his marriage. This scene is representative of all the other horrible scenes that he's had with his wife, right? A horrible choking honk, like an animal's sudden fury made him stop writing. But it was a familiar sound to me. He'd heard it a million times. And this is the moment he saw his wife through the cop's eyes. And that was a turning point. That's why the writer has chosen this specific scene to narrate, because it stands in. It's one scene that stands in for the entirety of the marriage. And after a couple of months, that marriage was over. And in short, that is scene versus summary. To recap, here we have 2 paragraphs of summary, and then about a third of it is summary, and then this whole part is scene. And that's the important part, where you're going to use all your show, not tell detail. So you have to think, where am I going to start my story? And that's what we're going to do later. Okay, let's see how this new technology worked. Bye-bye.